Good morning, everybody, and thank you again. We have over 1,100 personnel that have been fighting this fire around the clock, and since it broke out almost 30-something hours ago. I want to thank them again. They're tired, they're on the line, and they're continuing to give it their all to protect our city and our people. I want to start by thanking also the residents who have remained away in the mandatory evacuation area. I'm sure we all have gotten phone calls and had conversations of people saying, well, there's not a lot of smoke, it should be fine to go home. I want to continue to tell people, listen to the professionals and the firefighters who are asking you to stay away and mandating that you stay away. Even last night we had flare-ups on the eastern edge of Tiger Tail that we had to put down. You could have been asleep in a house, and if the wind had picked up, there could have been embers that blew in the mandatory evacuation area and ignited your home. So please stay safe and stay away until we lift that order. To reiterate, we did lift that for the Mountain Gate area. This blaze did increase in size last night, not by a lot, but now it is 658 acres, so it went up about 40 acres last night. That's a good sign, actually, that it didn't grow by more. Over the nighttime, we continue to have helicopter drops, continue to use what we could in the nighttime, and we'll, of course, have assets and resources here today. Our centers remain open, Pacific Palisades and Westwood Rec Center. Also during the day, the other ones that were open yesterday continue in the Valley, at the Van Nuys Sherman Oaks Recreation Center, at Stoner Park, and any of our recreation parks facilities. Everybody is always welcome to, but we have in particular the resources for overnight stays continuing in Pacific Palisades and here at the Westwood Recreation Center. Finally, I want to say that we do expect a couple things to happen with the weather. Tonight at about 11 p.m. we will see some very strong winds. To some degree those will be countered a little bit by a little bit more moisture in the air, but that moisture will drop down dramatically tomorrow morning. So people will not be returning to their homes this evening. You should prepare for that now, because those extreme wind events we're going to see, maybe winds up gusts as much as 70 miles an hour. And as we've seen in Northern California and experienced in past fires here, those can pick up and transfer the fire miles away sometimes. So we're going to keep that box, just to reiterate. That is Mulholland on the north, Sunset on the south. That is Temescal Canyon on the west, and on the east side, the 405 freeway. With that, let me turn it over to a fire chief to update as well, and I'll come back, say some words in Spanish, and I'll ask the other reps that are here to say a couple things too. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. Our goal today will be to increase containment as much as possible. That is our primary objective. We have several hundred firefighters, like the mayor said, well over 1,100. We do have a projection of calm winds throughout the day, but tonight that's going to change. The wind gusts could be up to 50 to 70 miles per hour. It only takes one ember to blow downwind, start another fire. Embers have been known to travel several miles, so we're very concerned about tonight's wind event. Now I'd like to talk about our Ready, Set, Go program. Ready, and all this information can be found at lafd.org. In Southern California, we need to be ready all the time. You need to have plans for yourself, your family, and your home. Today, you need to be set. We have a known threat tonight with this high wind event. We have a recent burn here, high winds projected tonight. You must be ready and now set. Set means get the things that you want to take with you and get them prepared in case you have to leave quickly. Things like prescription drugs, pet food, important documents, anything that you can't live without. Have that set. The last step is to go. When you hear from media, from lafd.org, social media, that means go. Go right away. And I encourage anybody with an interest in the events of the recent few days to register via text at 888-777. That's the Notify LA program. You will be notified that way. We'll also use a wireless emergency alert system. That's the WIA. That will send a message to your cell phone. You do not have to register for that. The Emergency Management Department takes care of that for us in the City of LA. They also use the reverse 911 directory. And then ultimately, you may have firefighters and police officers with their loudspeakers. It can get to that point. So please, anybody with a concern of this event, please be ready, set, go. Go to lafd.org for more information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. And a guy who's probably gotten as little sleep as I have, who's been really extraordinary for his constituents. I want to ask Councilmember Mike Bonnet to come forward to say a few words to him.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the Chief and to all of our first responders. I want to reiterate the thanks to and the patience of the people that I represent who are obeying the direction from the department and staying away from the mandatory evacuation zones. I want people in Brentwood and Palisades in those zones to understand that the department is doing this based on history and based on very keen analysis of the weather patterns. There has not been a conversation I've had over the past 6 years about the threat of fire in Brentwood or Palisades where somebody has not mentioned the Bel Air fire of the 60s or the Mandeville fire of the 1970s and the devastating impact they had taking out scores and hundreds of homes. LAFD has looked at the patterns of both of those fires, and they know exactly what the threat is from this fire and the wind patterns that could result in the same thing. And it is that analysis and that determined effort to prevent that same thing from happening that is leading to the continued evacuation order. I also want to ask folks to do one more thing. The Chief talked about the need to sign up for the emergency alerts and notify LA. The LA Times has a story this morning about gardeners and housekeepers who have been showing up for work in evacuation areas. I want to encourage people to make sure that they are reaching out to anybody who may be showing up at their homes and urging them to stay away. I want folks to encourage, whether it's your mother-in-law or your son's girlfriend or boyfriend, or your gardener or your housekeeper, to get them signed up for the emergency alerts as well. Anyone who may regularly be in your areas, we want them to be notified as well, because this is a continued threat and we want to make sure everybody is kept safe. Thank you.
Finally, I'd like to ask Assemblymember Richard Bloom, who's been critical in making sure we have the state support here. We do expect, we anticipate the governor will be here, I think, later on today as well. We're excited to see him and to have the state continue to give us the resources we need to fight this fire, including with CAL FIRE. But thank you, Assemblymember Bloom.
Thank you, Mayor Garcetti, and let me add my voice of thanks to LA Fire Department, the California Highway Patrol. We have state agencies, we have local agencies, mutual aid agencies from all over Southern California and even beyond that are responding to this. We don't see that much smoke in the air today, but we know that there are embers burning. This fire is still smoldering. We have the advantage of time in order to prepare for what we expect will be windy conditions tonight. So I want to, as my colleagues have done, encourage everyone to make sure that you stay away from the fire zone. Be alert, listen to what to the radio, to television broadcasts, sign up for alerts, and make sure you understand and anticipate what might be happening. And for those of you who live in my district and this entire fire is within my assembly district, if you live in the area and you're subject to an evacuation order, please stay away from the fire zone. We will do our best to keep you informed. I want to say specifically, I want to call out Cal, our folks who came out and opened up the 405. It's no, Caltrans yesterday closed down the 405, opened up the 405. This is no small feat when you think about it being one of the most trafficked, one of the most heavily trafficked arteries in the state of California. So thanks to all of our agencies, and we'll continue to be here to fight this fire and make sure that public safety is the #1 goal, and will continue to be, and we'll make sure that everyone is protected as well as can be.
Thank you, Assemblymember. I didn't say at the outset, it remains 5% contained. Again, I always say with the caveat that 5% contained. Containment is the absolute confidence that in that section it will not flare up again. That does not mean 95% out of control and blazing. As you can see, besides the flare-ups last night, this is a more dormant fire now. But remember also, even when we do lift evacuations in the coming days, there will be folks out there for probably a couple weeks. This fire will not be down and done for a couple of weeks. So remember that, stay alert. I want to thank the American Red Cross as well for their great work. Let me say a couple words in Spanish, and then I will as well be happy to answer any questions or refer them. Desde anoche el incendio de Getty ha crecido a 658 acres. Tenemos 1000 bomberos en la lucha contra este incendio gracias a su trabajo durante la noche, los helicópteros y todo el apoyo de este departamento y nuestros hermanos departamentos también. Tuvimos algunos brotes anoche en Tigertail, al lado este de Tigertail, y este sigue siendo muy peligroso. Si ustedes trabajan en esta área es una área de evacuación obligatoria. En el norte, Mulholland, al sur, Sunset, al este, el Freeway, y al oeste, Temescal, el cañón de Temescal, con la excepción del vecindario de Mountain Gate. Y Mountain Gate está abierta. Hay noticias a lafd.org/news. And I'd say that in English too, because even my parents were asking me, where's that map? It's not on the homepage of lafd.org, it's lafd.org/news where you can find that map, because we do have other fires and other news happening throughout the day, so that goes up on the main Splash homepage. So make sure you put /news to find out the latest information. With that, thank you again for getting the word out. Thank you to the press, one last note, for respecting the law. I know it's probably none of the folks that were here, but folks that were going to people's homes that have been burned and taking footage. Just a reminder, that is against the law, and so stay away from those. That applies to our press as well. So with that, happy to answer questions. Yes.
So we got a big fire going here. What's the capacity if another fire breaks out elsewhere in your jurisdiction?
We have had that discussion. We do have a plan in the event that occurs. I don't want to get into the details of that, but we're prepared. We're gonna need the community to join us in this effort to ensure there isn't another brush fire. But to answer your question, we have plans in place and we're ready to activate them if necessary.
But I mean, your commanders this morning were told they only got 3/4 of what they needed already. How much shorter are you going to be if there's another big event?
Well, there's too many variables to give you a specific answer to that. It depends on how. We have 1,350 calls a day. We transport over 600 people to the hospital every day. That doesn't change when we have big brush fires. So we're constantly monitoring our ability to respond throughout the city. And it's a matter of managing resources, getting master mutual aid in place with fire companies throughout the region. It's all of that. We do have a management structure that we have used before. If we need to, we can use it again. Bel Air Fire 1961.
I was just going to say that we recently had this experience, and we had trained for this. When we had the fire that was out in the northeast San Fernando Valley at the same time that we had the newer Bel Air fire that happened on the other side of the 405 just 2 years ago. So, of course, we always love more resources on any fire, but we're making strong progress on this, and I think we remain ready to be able to tactically address that. But, of course, it's all hypothetical, the size of the fires and stuff.
Yeah, that's a good example. In 2017, we had the Thomas Fire in Ventura, we had the Creek Fire in the northern San Fernando Valley, we had the Screwball Fire here, and they were all simultaneous. So it was a matter of managing resources to ensure we're protecting our home turf, the people of Los Angeles, as well as assisting our neighbors, like they are assisting us now during this fire.
Alcalde, si pudiera decir en español lo de los marineros y las empleadas domésticas, pues la mayoría de
Sí, por los trabajadores en esta sección de la ciudad, los marineros, personas que existen en los hogares, este área está cerrada. No vengan a esta área. Es muy importante porque hay mucha gente que están viajando a Brentwood Pacific South Palisades, al norte de Sunset, al este de Temescal, nos daría, y probablemente por 2 días más, al mínimo.
¿Puede mencionar sobre el sistema de alerta que
Sí, el sistema de alerta es importante. Ustedes pueden textar 888-777 y ustedes recibirán estas notificaciones.
Sir, yesterday investigators were looking at a power pole on Sepulveda near Getty Center at the origin of the fire. What is the relevance of that power pole, which witnesses say they saw burning right as the fire was starting?
So I'll ask, the chief can add to this. We don't have, though we hope to soon be able to announce either later today or maybe early tomorrow the conclusions of the arson investigation. And again, I always remind, I was teaching my daughter, an arson investigation doesn't mean we're investigating somebody necessarily, it's just the cause of the fire. That's one of the places that we're looking at for sure. And I would tell people don't make any assumptions about that. Just because in other places we've seen power poles themselves be the cause of the fire. Power poles can be attacked. They can have something that happens to them through winds and other things. So we're looking at that closely, but we can't yet release those conclusions. There's a separate power pole that was in the media that was absolutely, we concluded, not part of how this started. It was just burned from the bottom, fell over, it's still intact, the lines are intact. So that the picture you might have seen of that was not the cause of the fire.
Did the DWP get reported any anomalies or any kind of problems with their electrical equipment at the time of the start of the fire?
Not before the fire started, no.
And why doesn't the DWP, like other utilities, proactively turn off power?
It's a good question. The DWP doesn't need to. Most of the large power lines that go through wooded areas, DWP doesn't have. Ours are primarily in the city and in areas that don't have that brush. We do regular maintenance of that area. I think there's 200 trees cut just in July. And the rest of our power lines are underground. So it's very different. We have about 485 square miles of DWP territory. Compare that to, I believe, 40,000 and 60,000 acres for PG&E in Southern California, Edison. So we have a microscopic piece of territory. Those go through national forests and other things. That's where they're turning it off. That's where those had started.
We had it
before.
happen with the fire up there on the 210 freeway, Saddle Ridge. That was right by the freeway, and that was an Edison line.
Correct, an Edison line.
Have you discussed the idea of proactive?
We absolutely, we do, and it's an assessment of DWP that we have a completely different context than those utilities. Any other questions? Okay. The next briefing will be about 2 o'clock today.
These mandatory evacuations are going to be in place until tomorrow sometime, you think?
Well, we will assess that during today, but I will restate why. Tonight at 11 p.m., there are going to be extreme wind events. People went back in there, and any of these embers start to pick up, which happens always with high winds. They could blow anywhere in this evacuation area and set an entire neighborhood on fire. Tomorrow morning, we'll have those winds and 20% humidity. It'll drop down dramatically. So to protect these homes and anybody in them, absolutely, we anticipate nobody is going home tonight.
I mean, the wind event could continue through Thursday. Are you anticipating keeping people out of their homes through Thursday?
If need be, we'll absolutely take the recommendation of the professionals of the Los Angeles Fire Department on that. Those decisions will not be made just willy-nilly. They'll be made given a history, the maps, the weather, and the fire experts. We need to keep people safe.
And just one more for the chief. So we're expecting the big winds later tonight. You have a huge amount of people working to douse the fire during the day. Will you be increasing the number of firefighters on the lines tonight? How does the personnel change when their 12-hour shifts are coming? Would it just going to keep them on?
Good question. The question was, how do we manage our staffing in light of the wind tonight? We have our firefighters in place at this incident. We believe we have enough to manage this incident. We are augmenting our firefighters that are working today. They will be strategically placed in the brush areas of our city. And if necessary, if we get another big event, brush fire event, we can move resources around. But that includes taking some resources if we have to from this fire.
And just to read
Yeah, sure. The voluntary evacuation stretches all the way to Topanga Canyon and down to PCH. and Mountain Gate is a voluntary evacuation area. So otherwise, that the box of mandatory evacuation is the same. That's Mulholland, Sunset, 405, and Temescal Canyon. But if you look at the map at lafd.org/news, you can see that the dark red is the mandatory evacuation. I believe it's a yellow color that's in the voluntary ones. But in those voluntary areas, you should be at the ready state, as the chief mentioned. And I think the estimate that we had was about 9,000 homes and as many as about 17,000 people. That's just an estimate because we don't know how many people in each home, but about 9,000, a little bit north of 9,000 homes are affected still by the mandatory evacuations. Okay. Thank you again all so much. And to the members of the public, hang in there. We have your back on this. This department has your back. And if you see a firefighter, don't obviously come up and deliver stuff to them. But if you see a firefighter coming off the ship, please thank him or her for the work they're doing. Appreciate it. Thank you.